Right now, somewhere in your chest, there is a dull ache you cannot fully explain. Maybe you have been around people all day. Maybe your phone has been buzzing. Maybe you are not, by any measure, alone. And yet, the ache is there. Quiet, persistent, a little embarrassing. That feeling has a name. And the name is not what you think. It is not sadness. It is not depression. It is not loneliness in the way you were taught to understand it. It is something older, something wired so deep into your biology that scientists now believe it may be the single most dangerous chronic condition in the modern world. More dangerous than obesity, more dangerous than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. You were never supposed to feel this way. Your body was built for something else entirely. Millions of years ago, your ancestors did not survive because they were strong. They were not the fastest. They were not the most armored. They survived because they were together. The group was everything. The group was food, warmth, protection, and information. Being separated from the group was not merely uncomfortable. It was a death sentence. Every predator, every cold night, every drought was survivable inside the group and almost unsurvivable alone. Your nervous system learned that lesson, and it never forgot it. Here is what neuroscientist John Cacioppo discovered after spending more than 2 decades studying the biological effects of social isolation. What he found was not what anyone expected. Loneliness, he and his colleagues showed, does not just make you feel bad. It physically alters the architecture of your body. It changes how your genes express themselves. It rewires your immune system. It speeds the deterioration of your cardiovascular system. It accelerates cognitive decline. Cacioppo called it the loneliness signal. And here is the key. Your brain does not wait for you to consciously notice you are lonely before it starts reacting. It detects the absence of close social bonds the same way it detects hunger or thirst. Automatically, silently, and then it begins preparing your body for the threat it assumes must be coming. Think about that. Your brain treats loneliness as a threat. When your ancient ancestors were separated from the group, the most dangerous thing in the world was usually an animal with teeth, or another group of humans with weapons. Your nervous system, detecting isolation, shifts into a low-grade state of high alert. Cortisol rises, inflammatory proteins increase. Your immune system starts fighting invisible enemies. Sleep becomes lighter because a predator could come in the night. This is the loneliness effect, not a mood, a biological cascade. And here is the counterintuitive part that Cacioppo spent years trying to explain to a skeptical world. You can be surrounded by people and still trigger this cascade. The signal your brain is monitoring is not the number of humans nearby. It is the quality of social connection, the perceived safety of belonging, the sense that someone, somewhere, truly knows you and would notice if you disappeared. Without that, your body behaves as though you are alone in the dark and something is watching. Julianne Holt-Lunstad, a researcher at Brigham Young University, conducted one of the largest meta-analyses ever done on human mortality and social connection. She analyzed data from more than 3 million people across dozens of countries. The result was stark. People with adequate social relationships had a 50% greater likelihood of survival over any given period compared to those who were socially isolated or lonely. 50%. She was not measuring extreme hermits or prisoners in solitary confinement. She was measuring ordinary people, living ordinary lives, who simply lacked a felt sense of genuine connection. And the numbers did not improve when those people were technically around others. A person who goes to work, speaks to colleagues, attends events, and still feels unseen, unknown, and fundamentally separate from the humans around them shows the same biological markers as someone physically isolated. Your brain knows the difference between presence and connection. It has always known. So why, in an era of more communication tools than any civilization has ever possessed, are humans lonelier than at almost any point in recorded history? Why? When you can speak to someone on the other side of the planet in real time, when your social media profile connects you to hundreds or thousands, when your phone ensures you are never technically unreachable, is the loneliness signal firing more often in more brains than ever before? This is the paradox that researcher Sebastian Junger explored in his work on tribal belonging and that sociologist Robert Weiss first identified in the 1970s. The modern world, they argued, did not just fail to solve loneliness. In some fundamental way, it accidentally optimized for it. Here is what your ancestors had that you almost certainly do not. They had a small, stable group of people who depended on them, people who noticed when they were absent, people whose survival was entangled with theirs, people who saw them in mundane moments, not just curated ones, people who knew their history, their failures, their awkward truths. That is not friendship in the modern sense. That is something more like mutual biological witness. And it activated something deep in the social circuitry of the human brain that the thumbs up button on a photo simply does not reach. The neuroscience here is specific. When you experience genuine social belonging, when someone looks you in the eye and truly sees you, your brain releases oxytocin. Your threat response system quiets. Your inflammatory markers decrease. Your cardiovascular system relaxes. John Cacioppo measured this in lab settings. The physiological difference between a person who feels genuinely seen and a person who feels invisible is measurable in their blood. You were built for this. You were built to be witnessed. And the cruelest part of the loneliness effect is that prolonged exposure to it makes connection harder. Cacioppo demonstrated this in studies tracking lonely individuals over time. People in chronic states of perceived social isolation began to perceive neutral social situations as threatening. They became more likely to interpret an ambiguous glance as hostility, more likely to expect rejection, more likely to withdraw. The loneliness signal, designed to motivate you to seek the group, can flip. Instead of pulling you toward others, it begins pushing you away from them. A protection mechanism, an ancient algorithm that, under modern conditions, can close itself into a loop. You stop reaching out. Because reaching out feels dangerous. Because your nervous system, running ancient software on modern hardware, has begun to conflate social vulnerability with predator exposure. This is why researchers who study loneliness insist it must be treated as a public health crisis, not a personal failing. The stigma around loneliness, the idea that a lonely person simply lacks the social skills or effort to fix their situation, is not just wrong. It is biologically backwards. Chronic loneliness does not reflect a failure of character. It reflects a biological feedback system being overwhelmed by environmental conditions it was never designed to encounter. Your brain evolved in a world where you spent every day of your life with the same 30 to 50 people. People who knew your name before you could say it. People who would remember you after you were gone. People whose faces you could read with the accuracy of long practice. That world does not exist for most people anymore. And so you sit in a meeting of 12 people you have worked alongside for 3 years and feel a loneliness that does not make any logical sense. You scroll through evidence of hundreds of connections and feel the ache deepen rather than ease. You finish a dinner with people who like you well enough and drive home with the quiet certainty that something essential went unexpressed. This is not your failure. This is the loneliness signal doing what it was built to do. Telling you the group is not secure. Telling you the connection is not real enough. Telling you that you are, in some essential way, still on your own in the dark. The question your ancestors never had to ask is the one you are quietly asking right now. What do you do with that? The research, frustratingly, does not point toward a simple fix. Holt Lundstad is careful to note that the solution is not merely spending more time with people. It is cultivating fewer, deeper interactions over time. It is being known, not just seen. It is the slow accumulation of moments where someone witnesses your ordinary self, not your best self, and stays anyway. Cacioppo, before his death in 2018, said something that stayed with everyone who studied alongside him. He said the opposite of loneliness is not company, it is intimacy. And intimacy takes time, risk, and the willingness to be seen before you are certain it is safe. Your body already knows this. It has been trying to tell you for as long as you can remember. That ache in your chest is not weakness. It is one of the most ancient, most human systems in your body, doing exactly what it was designed to do in a world that was never designed with it in mind. It is asking you to find the group, the real one, and somewhere in a body not so different from yours, someone else is feeling it too. Right now, somewhere in your chest, there is a dull ache you cannot fully explain. Now you know what it is asking for.